help last night. It's whatever. Darn kids.
Thank you.
We are recording. And Doug is at the light in Park Street. Oh, there he is. Just think about
Doug right there.
That was quick. I guess we don't really have a chair of the Public Safety Committee, so we just call the committee.
You going to Sports Hall of Fame banquet tomorrow night?
Yes, sir.
I'll be there.
So, Chief Hawkins wanted to present to you an overview of the police department and some structural changes he would like to make in the organization of the police department. So I'll turn it over to Chief Hawkins.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor.
Hey.
Yes, sir, as I said the other night, I've been here around 2 years now and been looking at a lot of things to structure-wise. If I could bring your attention to not the proposed, but the Belmont Police Department organizational chart. One of them has proposed in red and the other one's just a regular, if you would just look at that one. I'll go through this as quickly as I can, but as you can see, it's the chief and then the captains there in the middle, and then most important, I'll bring your attention to the two outside columns that says lieutenant. Currently, at this point, then everything flows under those charts, and I can explain those in detail if anyone needs it, but basically I can explain it. So right now, we have a lieutenant over the administrative service, which handles all the investigations, everything, and the internal complaints, external complaints, training, everything. Our patrol lieutenant, as you can see, is over all the patrol shifts, the community units, the school resource officers, and everything. So that we're looking at span of control and chain of command is what I want to focus on here. So at this point, what happens is this lieutenant is responsible for all of those people and all of those processes that come up through them. Typically, you would have a captain and two patrol lieutenants, because you basically have two squads. So you would have a captain and two patrol lieutenants. Right now, we just have one lieutenant that handles all three of those jobs. So they're basically wearing three hats. And the captain in the middle, as you know, we had an assistant chief's position. We froze that. I didn't do anything with that at all because we wanted to look at everything and evaluate everything and see where we were going to go with it. So what I am proposing, if you will look at the proposed sheet, is two things. One is kind of as an immediate thing, is to turn that patrol lieutenant slot into a captain slot is an immediate thing. And one is because, as I said, that person is doing three people's jobs now, and as far as being the workload and the compensation is really not in line with what it should be. The second, so that piece of it, if that were to be approved, I would like to change that lieutenant's position to a captain's position maybe around the 1st of March, and that would cost us for the rest of the year about $2,500 to change that position. And I think that due to some salary lag, I could find the approval and the manager's approval. I think I could make that up. With that, what I'm asking the council to consider for July is to add, and you'll see the assistant chief slot. I'm not even concerned. It's on there as just an item that was in there. Not even consider that right now, but to add a patrol lieutenant, to add a new position, and that being the patrol lieutenant position. That's what I would ask to consider, because it's important that we have that chain of command, we have that structure on patrol. We have the captain who has to oversee every piece of paperwork that anyone touches basically comes through to the lieutenant now, which would be a captain if they were there. that person does not have a lot of time to interact with the patrol, to really go out there and see what's going on patrol. That is the oversight to the sergeants. So when you look at the span of control and you look at the chain of command, there needs to be that oversight. So at this point, the captain's, or the captain's position doesn't exist like it does in most agencies. So if we were to make that captain and then in July, council was to approve, add a lieutenant's position. So that it wouldn't be adding 2 positions, it'd be changing one and then adding the lieutenant's position in July. That,
New budget year.
the new budget year, yes, sir. But even, but consider now, I'm asking now that the council consider the change in that position, if I'm wording this properly, Mr. Miller, is to change that lieutenant position, at least at this point, to a captain's position, because that person is doing several people's jobs at this point. And if you look at other agencies, that is the way, they have a captain over the administrative areas of the police department, they have a captain over patrol, and then they have lieutenants and sergeants, different ranks underneath that. And that is something that we've been missing. We've kind of restructured some things since I came in, because a lot of things had, bureaus and stuff had been eliminated by the previous chief. So that was my first request.
So, let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
So that captain then only has one direct report, and that's the lieutenant, who still has the same team that they had originally. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So help me understand, you said that all paperwork and stuff has to flow through that lieutenant, and that's why we need a captain. Do we need a captain, or do we need like an administrative assistant to handle paperwork?
When I say paperwork, I'm talking about, so as a patrol officer, anything they do on patrol, anything, use of force, complaints, any kind of paperwork needs request that goes up through the chain of command.
Yeah.
So right now, what happens is you see all these units. If you look and if you see the lieutenant, and then you see there's 4 patrol teams. You see the sergeants, you see the corporals, you see the patrol officer. There's 5 people on the ship. Anything that's generated on patrol comes through that chain of command, but ultimately it lands on that lieutenant's desk to check off on it, to read it. When you look at a case file of the officer use of force, it's pretty in-depth. But the ultimate thing is just, it's the whole span of control, and all these people, anything they do, that person is responsible for, on top of a lot of other responsibilities that they have. Like, right now, Lieutenant Falls is over, and he's been over a transition of the 800 megahertz radios. He also helps oversee our fleet for the cars, the fleet. He's over our body cameras. So he is doing ultimately what in most agencies a captain and 2 lieutenants do at this point.
So let me ask you a question. Why is it not working now?
I'm sorry?
Why is the present structure not workable?
We're making it work, but so where we're at now, we're making it work, but we have a lieutenant who eventually is going to hit the wall, because they're doing a lot. And then the other part is, we're moving the agency forward. We're looking at doing accreditation too, which is, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of work, and it's work intensive. And right now, I've made it, and that's probably the downfall, I've made what we have work to make everything work, knowing that, because I like to come in and evaluate things before I just come in and start saying, hey, we need this administrative position. Yes, sir.
So you think ultimately we'll be more efficient with this positioning here?
Yes, sir. With the proposed, we're going to be more efficient, because we're going to spread those responsibilities out. Because what happens is, and here's my fear, and this is what happens in a lot of places that get themselves in trouble. So if I have 15 use of forces come to my desk, and I'm the one that really is ultimately overseeing them, eventually I get tired of reading that stuff, and it gets to be less and less attention put on it. The more I have on my desk, and the chief's yelling at me to get it off my desk and get it to him, so then things start slipping through the crack. When you do not have that
concentration,
you don't have the information that's spread out, you don't have the duties that's spread out, and you get one person, you keep piling on them, then your quality starts failing. And that's what we do not want. In Belmont Police Department, I will tell you this, we could operate, we're not operating down here anymore. We're up here.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what the man was telling me the other night. So you could do things down here at the other level, but I don't think that's where Belmont's at or what we need to be. We're trying to bring ourselves to a national accreditation of following best practices, and currently with what we have, something has to give. And I know that we we've been making it work, but again, we have people who are really feeling the pressure, and eventually what happens to those people, they start leaving, or they get burnt out, and then they're not, want to do that.
Adrian, what's your opinion on
Well,
this?
so, I mean, in this case, you've got someone doing captain level work, but is a lieutenant.
Yeah.
So, the workload's probably not going to change a whole lot. It will be some lower value work that could be pushed down to somebody else. We just don't have that somebody else. And Ron, I understand what you're saying, but when you've got somebody doing multiple jobs, yeah, it's cheaper to have them do that, but that only lasts for so long, and then the quality slips.
We get burned out, yeah.
Burned out, and then we lose a good person.
What do you expect to do with the assistant chief's position?
I expect that if we could just sit on that and continue, I'm not asking for that, because right now I have a need here, and I say down the road.
Yeah.
I just like to keep that in place so we don't lose sight of it, that it's still something down the road that will be needed, but just, right now, and looking like, and what I'm asking for is not unrealistic for other agencies. That is pretty much a structure. I think even in fire departments, most shifts have a captain and, or I would say paid fire department. I mean, I'm talking like your, or I know you are in a little different boat, and it's spread out. But, so just looking at basic structures, but where we're at now is, I expect my lieutenants to be out and observing things out on the street and paying attention to the process and make sure that the supervisors are keeping their people in check. And right now, our lieutenant on patrol has very limited time to do that, because they're stuck in there trying to do the administrative, the paperwork. And that's something that there's a lot of paperwork that goes with our jobs. We all want body cameras, but somebody has to watch them. Somebody has to manage all of this footage of these body cameras, and somebody has to do all of this stuff. So
A lot of work.
it's really something that this has been needed since I came here, but I've tried to evaluate the project and find out where we most need this position, and right now this is where this position is needed.
You said it'd be $2,500 for the rest of this year. What are we looking at then for the new budget year?
For
Is that what
A
you're talking
promo
about?
for the one guy
multiplying
in
that?
a lieutenant position.
well, for the new lieutenant's position, that's I mean, it would benefit, get the benefits and everything. We're looking at about $65,000.
So Adrian, let me ask you a question, since you manage the total budget. The police department was $400,000 above in our last audit. Was that because of personnel, or was that because of purchases, one-time purchases?
So when we add personnel, police officers, they're expensive, but you got the personnel costs, but you've also got the vehicle and all the equipment. So having a fully staffed department is an expensive operation.
So after having the fully staffed department, then the purchasing of equipment should not be as much as it was last year, because you already bought the stuff? I'm just trying to figure, it went up $400,000, and I'm sure a lot of that is because probably this is one of the first times we've been fully staffed.
Yeah.
And the cost of gas.
I
and the
discussed
cost
that
of
with Michelle
everything
after the meeting. I said, Michelle, I felt like those numbers were a little skewed that the auditor gave. She said, yeah, we discussed that. Those numbers did not take into consideration that we were fully staffed. So there was a gap there of the police department being fully, I know that is one thing that I did bring up, because I questioned that about to Michelle. But
Yeah, that wasn't just a salary study. That was,
right, that's
that
why I
was
said, whoa,
filling
I don't
vacant
think that
positions.
was exactly correct, so I asked her about that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm pleased with the way the police department's doing. I think they're doing an outstanding job now, and the public seems to be really pleased with the help that they get, the assistance that they get from the police department. It's a big plus as far as I'm concerned.
So what's the advantage of, again, my only struggle with this is a one-to-one reporting relationship.
Mr. Gatt, can I ask?
Yeah.
You're saying the one-to-one, can you explain, I think I'm misunderstanding.
The captain of patrolling has one direct report, and that's the lieutenant.
Well, but they're over all of those people.
Granted, I get it, but he only has one person to manage.
But they're over,
Right, so
All of
let me,
these
let me,
units.
let me finish my thought. So, the current, you say the current lieutenant of patrol is kind of overwhelmed, right? So when you look at his team, it looks like there's two sections. There's those patrolling, and then he's got this community policing. What percent of his time is devoted towards having to deal with the patrolling piece, and what percent of his time is dealt with community policing?
if I understand your,
Who consumes more of his time?
well, he is so split at this point, because if there's an issue at the schools, he is the ultimate that can go and take care of the events there. He has to make sure that they're all in place, and we have a lot of them. And any of the community stuff, even overseeing, moving people on patrols when those requests comes up to him. Any ultimate decision that's made on patrol, that is his decision to.
So are you saying that, because part of me saying, why couldn't you take the sergeant of community policing reporting to that captain as well, that captain patrol? And give him two people, a community policing section, and then the lieutenant patrol only has to worry about the patrolling teams.
Yeah, I guess I'm not quite, I mean, it's the oversight piece, it's the, the span of control and the accountability, and that's just the structures of paramilitary organizations, and to oversee those sections so there's levels of controls that are not missed.
Safety.
The sergeant are in a different level, they're not in the administration of it, and this sergeant, ultimately, these people here, so if you have, use 30 people, so if all these sergeants are split up and they have 30 employees together under them, it's just that everything that funnels up has to go through that lieutenant, go to that captain, but they have a lot of other responsibilities other than, I use paperwork as an example, just meaning an accountability, because if something's missed there, that's what costs the city a lot of money. And if they miss something on the cameras, or they miss something that's not documented that gets us sued, they miss something in the use of force where an officer did not follow proper policies and procedures, these people are also helping us to develop policy and procedure. Currently, right now, the lieutenant is there, is also an instructor who teaches our driver training, teaches some of our defensive tactics and things. So, I mean, there's just, I'm trying to explain it the best I can, but it's just it's a level of controls that are in place, and a structure and a chain of command that's in place. This is the IACP. These are the standards that the International Association of Chiefs of Police follow that talk about best practices and having control methods in place to make sure you're not missing things, and to make sure, for liability purposes, that your organization is on track with where they need to be.
So will the final still come up through that way, or will the paperwork skip the lieutenant and go straight to the captain?
Here's actually where this lieutenant's really going to come into play. They're going to be able to be boots on the ground, if I can put it in layman terms, boots on the ground with the people that can really be out there and oversight, where the captain can focus more on trying to keep it all together and make sure it's right before it gets to me for the final sign off. So I mean, you could say, like, I sign off, I have to look at everything, but I'm not having to look at things quite as closely, because they've come through several channels, and now they're just bringing me the highlights of it, and then I can oversee it. But that, right now, the piece we're missing is that person being out there with them, showing that leadership of an administrator who's out there and knows what they're doing and can relate to them, and then bring it back, to the captain, if that makes.
Yeah.
In one botched situation,
You're the expert. In my world, it doesn't make sense to have a one-to-one reporting relationship.
Right, and I know on paper it looks like that, but the way it physically works, that's really not.
That would be like Adrian having an assistant city manager, and everybody reports to the assistant manager.
Which sounds fantastic.
Right, and it's, I mean, this is not just a structure that Chad Hawkins came up with.
Yeah.
This is a structure across America.
Okay.
I mean, this is not an uncommon, actually, there are actually more administrators in those chains, but I know we should have.
As we grow,
Right.
as we grow,
That's right.
is it possible that we add more patrol officers and you'll need a second lieutenant of patrol that reports to the captain of patrol, or will the lieutenant still have, you just keep growing that lieutenant's thing? or-
Ideally, so in an organization, a lot of them our size, so you would have this captain over administration, you would have this captain over patrol, and then there's two squads, so the A and B squad and C and B on patrol. You would have actually a lieutenant over this squad, a lieutenant over this squad. So we're not asking for that. That would be asking for two, and we're not. But as we grow eventually, and you get more officers on the shift, absolutely, that's something that
Okay.
that would need to, but we're talking we're trying to make the best and make us the most efficient and effective, and, trying to follow best practice. We're trying to put Belmont really on the map.
Yeah. My only question is, does it make sense that that sergeant of community policing report to that lieutenant position? And why is it important that it reports to that position?
Because it's under a patrol function.
Okay.
Right. It's
Does he
under a
share
patrol-
resources? Do you have to schedule and share resources? Someday you're being the downtown officer, and one day you're being a patrol other
Right,
area.
yes,
So
all-
he's scheduling and moving resources and everything
Right.
else.
All the patrol functions are under that side of the patrol, and if you see on that side of the command piece, if you see the way it goes, that these two don't connect.
Right.
This over
Right.
here is a total,
Right.
this patrol function should operate independently of investigations.
Right, I get that. I didn't know, are the same people the crossing guards every day? Are the same people the downtown officer every day? Are the
Well-
same people the traffic unit people? Is the same people the school resource?
Yes, but they
Is
do
the
fill
is
in
the dog
for-
the same dog every day?
Yeah, they fill in, well, the crossing guards are big, but they fill in for each other, but they're
Okay.
under that.
So if that
control.
lieutenant of patrol has to, make decisions at times that I'm going to pull from that sergeant, that community policing because I got to fill for vacations over here, then it doesn't make sense for that sergeant to report directly to the captain. But if they're distinct and separate organizations and ne'er shall they meet, that's why I wondered, then the captain of patrol would have two direct reports, one patrolling, one community policing.
Yeah, and we try to keep them as separate, but working cohesively as possible, and they have those different lines, but because we don't have, ideally, like I said, we would have a different lieutenant over that separate division, and it would go up those chains, and I know it's sometimes a little difficult
Yeah.
to
Okay.
understand, but it's just a way in law enforcement, the way our process and our controls work, when you start looking at chain of command, when you're doing investigations, or, there are certain things like, for example, the way ours work with the personnel, a sergeant on the Adam team here technically does not have the right to be involved in personnel matters on the Baker team over here because they're not in their direct line of supervision.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that we have to adhere to that sometimes don't even make sense to us, but those are the standards, and that's how we try to keep ourselves out of trouble.
So today, the decision is, you want to just add the $2,500 of promoting a lieutenant to a captain.
For the remainder of the year, yes, sir.
And then next year, you want to promote a lieutenant to a captain, and you want to create a lieutenant position.
No, sir. I just want to add a lieutenant after that, a lieutenant's position. The captain would already be in place.
Stay in place.
Yes. So basically, the lieutenant's position right now is going to turn into a captain's position.
So what you're saying is 2,500 this year,
So this
65,000 next year?
this
We
captain
can budget to that.
Remains in.
moves over here. This guy gets to promote a captain. And then you add
No,
a
sir. We would still only have two, we would still only have, this captain's not going anywhere. This captain's actually right here, right now, filling this slot. They're wearing a couple of hats too. So this captain is not going, so you would just still have two captains and two lieutenants.
So this is going to become the captain of what?
It already is. It's the captain over all the support services over here, investigations and everything. That's the hat that he's wearing.
Okay.
With him.
Okay, so he's over here, right?
Yes, sir.
And he's going to keep that.
Yes,
So
sir.
he's got that.
Yes, sir.
Then, are you asking for a captain position then? Because you don't have a captain, you have a lieutenant.
In the proposal, we've asked to make that a captain for
You've
now.
asked to make this lieutenant a captain.
For now, yes, sir.
So that would be a promotion to a captain.
Right, and then at the budget year, just add a
And then
lieutenant's
add a
position.
lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we're not adding 2 captains, we're just promoting
I got
one
you.
and then asking to add a lieutenant. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So Adrian, tell me this, the city manager, I know he has talked to you before coming in here because I'm sure you talked to him very thoroughly about it. So you're talking like 2,500 and 65,000 next year. And so why do you think we need to do that as a city manager?
Because I want to see our police department continue to grow professionally, and we can't do that if we're straining our staff.
So you've evaluated and feel that it's most important that we do this for the effectiveness of the police department,
Yes,
and you support it 100%.
right, to provide proper oversight.
And there's one important fact that you have to consider as well. If you're doing investigations and you are fatigued or whatever the case may be and don't have the hands to do what they need to do, and you botch an investigation, it can cost us a lot of money. A lot of money.
I think something that's really, and it's about to happen we're moving forward, we've already been working on it to move towards the national accreditation. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of administrative work. It pays dividends in the long run.
Yeah.
So, the investments we made, like the process we just went through, they got us a reduction on our liability insurance through the League of Municipalities. This gets an 18% reduction on your liability insurance when you become nationally accredited. So all these things, most importantly, it protects our city from lawsuits. And when you have that accreditation status, it helps you for a lot of things. One, it helps you to get grants. It helps you to have a higher status, and because they know you're following best practices. So when you're challenged in the court of law, it stands up and they stand behind you to say they're following our best practices.
Yeah.
It's protecting our city in today's time. That's critical.
That's very important.
So what you need from us is, I'd like to take our manager's recommendation and pass it on to city council for final consideration.
So, so the action would be to make the recommendation to change the patrol lieutenant position to a patrol captain, and then to make sure that we include that patrol lieutenant in next year's budget.
So that's your recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Well, then I would make a motion that we forward your recommendation to full council consideration.
I'll second it.
I'll third it.
Okay.
All right.
Vote.
Any force?
All in favor?
All of us.
Then did you want to mention the grant?
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
I hate to, I'm at the well, and I know you're already thinking I'm asking for a lot, but we have an opportunity to apply the North Carolina Governor Highway Safety Program traffic grants. There's grant opportunities for, it's a matching grant, and this is something that I think the city should really consider. And what I'm asking for today is permission to apply for this grant. You do not have to, what we would like is a somewhat commitment, but come budget time, if you don't approve it, but we still have to have this to move forward with the grant. So obviously we have some traffic issues in Belmont, and I think we meet all the stats. Bill's been here, he's pulled up a lot of our stats and things for us, but this is something that for officers, it's a 15% match for my part. And the first year, that would cost, for 2 officers, that would cost the city $34,800. Year 2, it would cost the city $33,000. Year 3, it would cost $55,000. Year 4, we reapply for the grant, or the city picks it up. This is the benefit. The equipment, so they pay for the equipment the first year. The equipment is $22,000 that they would pay because they outfit the officers from top to bottom, the cars, the vehicles. That'd be, just say $100,000 with all the equipment. So basically, the first year, what we would gain through the personnel, everything is paid the first year, would be $122,000 in equipment. Then we don't have to pay for that after that equipment part's done. It's paid for in the first year. Okay, and then again, so that first year would cost us $34,800 for a $122,000 return in equipment and vehicles. The second year, it would cost the city, again, $33,000. The third year, $55,000. The city is doing nothing but growing. You're going to have to add in traffic is one of those things. So with this traffic grant, that is the grant that's out there right now, but it has to be submitted. They open it, and we have to submit it by the end of January. Bill has done a lot of legwork on that. He has those things ready. Again, when it comes to funding, that's a budget, but you you need permission to submit the grants, and then it doesn't have to be funded. But I would like the council to consider that you're actually getting two positions for the price of less than one, really.
So what happens the sixth year?
The fifth and sixth years, the city has to pick it up, or through attrition, it basically goes away.
So if we employ two positions the sixth year, we'd have to pick them up totally or do away with the positions?
The fifth year, we can actually reapply for the grant, or you let it go, and it's gone.
So you either lose personnel or do something else with it?
If you didn't need the personnel, I don't see Belmont going backwards 5 years from now, especially in those situations. But if that's the case, yes,
The only reason I ask that, I know a lot of times grants are real important, but then the issue is what do you do when the grant is done?
Yes, sir. In the grants that I've been involved, especially with personnel, they generally, through turnover and things like that, if the city doesn't up a grant, then they're removed that way, or they phase them out. And that's just through my experience, and that hasn't been with Belmont. But
And when would we hear if we are approved for the grant? In other words, by budget time for next year?
Before budget time, so we
Before
can come,
budget
and then it would be
time?
up to the council to fund it. And if they didn't, then obviously you're not committed. This is so we can have permission to apply for the grant, then the city can dig in deeper as we're at budget meetings to look at those numbers and see if it makes sense
And
for the city.
since the federal government runs on a different fiscal year, their fiscal year starts in October, so that would be the start of the project.
Yes.
So those first couple of months, there wouldn't be a worry about salary costs.
So you're asking for permission to apply, but not necessarily permission for us to approve the grant?
Right, yeah, we're not asking for it. We're just asking, did you consider letting us apply for this grant, and then we have time to look at it, but there are strict deadlines on getting the grant submitted.
And this is for a traffic patrol
It is
officer,
two
right?
traffic officers to handle
Which is
all.
probably
traffic.
something we're gonna need over the next several years anyway.
Yeah.
Is there any concern with us applying for the
No, I
grant?
think it's fine.
No, I'm okay with that.
Is that, you need, does the council doesn't meet again?
No, I just wanted your permission, and he's gonna, no, it doesn't have to be a formal vote, I just need your
There's a box you had to check on the application.
Yes. And you don't even have to have that, but I want that. I don't want to be applying for a grant without our
Yeah.
council knowing about it. Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
thank you.
Appreciate it,
Very
Chief.
much.
Thank you, Bill.
Consideration.
Before we finish the Public Safety Committee, Chief, you want to talk about what happened last night on Gilcrest, just to update the whole council, and your response to the storm drain issue?
Other than just the storm drain was down in a 14-foot storm hole, the kids were playing with it.
Wow.
Councilman Turner got a text or something, which he texted Adrian and myself, and it was neat that by the time I think we actually got down there, water and sewer had already got there, put a cow gate down, put some cones up. And then we had enough staff on the scene to reach and get the culvert out, put it back, and I hope it made the neighbors happy.
So, yes, as I understand it, there was some kids in Stowe Point neighborhood that climbed through a storm drain and then saw the manhole up and then climbed the ladder and they removed the grate. And or they came back out and removed the grate. But these grates are heavy and it slipped and fell into the manhole. And had the kids been under there, they would have been
Wow.
injured severely.
Why do we have somebody contacting a council member instead of the police or the fire people?
I think
That's-
Look for help.
they're just trying to reach.
Wow, people don't know what they're
individual.
supposed to be doing, do they?
Yeah, the individual reached out and
Yikes.
Well, they had sent a message, I think, to the county or the volunteer fire department's Facebook page and called them. And they just know me on Facebook, and they sent me a message saying, we did this and we haven't gotten a response. Can you help us out with it? So that's when I texted Adrian
Yeah.
and Buck.
Wow, people are very,
So that's behind the fire station, for somehow or
Yeah.
another, they got on 32's communities, volunteer fire department's Facebook. 'Cause
Wow.
We don't do Facebook day. Because of stuff like that, because that's not a good place for,
no, it's not.
but someone had already went through got the on call, you know, so.
so water and sewer had responded and,
Yeah,
and
okay.
being on a Sunday afternoon, they put a cattle gate up and some cones
Stoke
around.
Point down,
But then, I guess that wasn't sufficient for some of the residents, so they then reached out and asked for the fire department to come, so.
I said we've got to educate our public a bit more too then.
But I appreciate the water and sewer staff and the fire department going out on a cold Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening to respond to that.
Yeah.
It was the area where it was missing was large, and it could have been really bad for
Could have
somebody
been a
walking.
serious
out.
thing, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Start early.
We list those call incidents as other.
Yeah.
Dang.
We appreciate it. So that's all for the Public Safety Committee. Is there anything else? So we can adjourn that meeting, and then, Mayor, if you'll call our special meeting, official city council meeting to order.
Let me call our special city council meeting to order. We're going into closed session. Adrian?
So we've got two items on the agenda, but in respect for our outside counsel,